This week we meet the twins, Jacob and Esau, the sons of Isaac and Rebekah. The two children could not be more different. When they are born, Esau is described as having a hairy mantle and red-complected, ruddy-skinned. Jacob, when he was older, is described as being a person who is wholesome and dwelling in tents, meaning he spent his time studying Torah and in spiritual pursuits, while Esau, his twin brother, was a man of the field. These two differences represent their missions in this world. Jacob's mission and his job was to be involved in spirituality almost exclusively, while Esau's job was much harder and more challenging. He was meant to be a man of the field, a person who was out there, involved in the world, engaged in taking the things that were outside and possibly involved more materialistically and bringing them to a place of spirituality. Unfortunately, Esau does not succeed in his mission, and also in this week's Parsha, we see a telling example of what happens to him. We have a brief sentence that says that Jacob was simmering a stew, and that Esau came in from the fields and he was exhausted. What was this stew? The stew was a pot of lentil soup, according to our sages, that Jacob was preparing for Isaac, who was sitting Shiva in mourning for the death of Abraham. The family was grieving the loss of this great person and obviously their grandfather and father. Where was Esau when all this was happening? He was out in the field, not working, sowing, planting, reaping, or harvesting, not that kind of work in the field, but he was out in the world and he was out hunting and doing negative things that were completely inappropriate. And he comes in exhausted, again, not from work, but just from being out in the world doing what he wasn't supposed to do. When he sees this pot of stew that is for Isaac, who is in mourning, his response to it is, "Pour out some of that very red stuff into me. I'm exhausted." The way he says it, it's as if he was saying, "Pour it down my throat." He sees this pot of stew that was meant to be used as a consolation for those in mourning, instead as something that could satisfy his passions, not even its nutritional value. He doesn't say, "Oh, that soup smells delicious. It smells amazing. I'm so hungry. May I please have a bowl?" He just says, "Give me some of that very red stuff and pour it down my throat." When Jacob hears this, he says to Esau, "Sell me your birthright." The birthright was the right of spiritual supremacy for the family. When he sees that Esau's perspective and his approach is so immersed in physicality, he wants to take that from Esau and take on that responsibility. Esau doesn't hesitate. He says, "What use of it is it to me? I'm going to die anyway," and that he spurned his birthright. So Jacob gives him the soup and he eats. Even after having the soup, he doesn't regret that he sold his birthright. It says he ate, he got up, he left, and he spurned his birthright. Unfortunately, Esau was not able to fulfill the mission that he had, and it went to Jacob, which is now the mission of the Jewish people. The Jewish people fulfills the same function as what Jacob and Esau were supposed to have together as individuals. We are both outside in the world, we are inside in the tents, and Esau's role is really the more difficult one. To be out in the world, out in the marketplace, out in society, and be able to bring things into a spiritual perspective is much more challenging than just being in the study tents, in the study halls, in shul. That is our challenge as people. We have more to learn perhaps from Esau, and God willing, as we begin this new month of Kislev and the miracles of Hanukkah, we will be out in the streets, out in the world, and we will be able to bring spirituality to the world around us and perfect it as it was meant to be. Have a good Shabbos.